Hey guys, tonight we're digging into stories written in dust. Tales so old, they make the pyramids look like pop-up shops. Picture this. Your bare feet sink into rust-red earth, the outback sun bleeding orange across a sky wider than your entire field of view. Somewhere in the distance, a dingo's howl stitches itself to the wind. You kneel, fingers hovering above ground. That's part map, part memory, part something science still can't quite name. Oh, and if you think surviving this heat is tough, try explaining to a kangaroo why you're doodling in its backyard. Spoiler, you probably won't. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Bangkok midnight, Albuquerque breakfast burrito hour. All vibes welcome here. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crouch in dry riverbeds where 40,000 generations before you left whispers in the sand. Not carved, not painted, danced into existence with fingertips and sticks. These weren't decorations, friend. The Australian National Museum's got fragments proving it, those zigzags and concentric circles. Maps of monsoon trails, star paths, locations of sweetest grub worms after the rains. But here's the kicker. Elders would erase each piece by sunrise. Art meant to dissolve like morning mist. Imagine your GPS resetting daily, forcing you to actually learn the land. Your hand hovers over a half-finished spiral, the kind mainstream scholars swear predates tic-tac-toe by 30 millennia or so. Feel that granular texture. Grains stick to your sweat, crumbling at the edges even as you work. Historians still argue whether these patterns began as sacred creation stories or bare-knuckled survival cheat codes. I'm siding on the geology grad student who got laughed out of a conference for claiming some grids match seismic fault lines. Wouldn't you scribble notes if the ground itself kept trying to swallow your house? Now catch this. Some 19th century explorer named Stephen Hale swore he'd found a sand tablet showing constellations only visible from Tasmania. Dude also wrote in his diary that the ochre pigment gave him hives, which, no offense to poor Stephen, sounds like karma for stealing sacred dirt. Fast forward to 2016. Thermal imaging on cave walls reveals handprints overlapping erased sand designs, ghost images of stories told and retold, until the land itself memorized them. Makes your childhood etch a sketch look pathetic, doesn't it? Breeze tickles your neck, the kind that carries voices if you don't listen too hard. You glance down, your spirals already blurring, edges kissed away by wind that smells like rain 3 days off. Modern artists try mimicking the technique with sidewalk chalk, Instagramming their ephemeral art tags. But there's no algorithm for the real deal. The way these patterns pulled double duty as teaching tools and tribal copyright cross a clan boundary uninvited. Suddenly, those pretty dots rearrange into what one anthropologist swears translates to turn back or become kangaroo snack. Fun fact, back in 2009, some tech bro tried patenting a sand-based augmented reality interface after visiting Anangu country. Legend says elders responded by drawing a very specific symbol near his rental car, which later stalled in 90-mile-an-hour heat. Coincidence? I report you decide. Your thighs scream from squatting. Modern life hasn't prepped you for pre-colonial posture. As twilight bleeds indigo overhead, you finally grasp the brutal genius of it all. No museums, no glass cases, just knowledge passed through palms and dirt, and the repeated grace of forgotten hands. Before you rise, a final gust scatters your spiral into the spinifex grass. Somewhere beyond the dunes, laughter ripples crinkled and warm, as if the land itself giggles at your fleeting attempt to hold it. You kneel in the dirt, fingertips brushing the cracked earth as a breeze carries the sharp scent of eucalyptus. This isn't just soil, it's a living textbook. For over 60,000 years, Aboriginal elders taught survival through the land itself, turning every anthill into a lesson on insect behavior, every rock formation into a map of water sources. You're not just learning to read the ground, you're learning to listen to it. Take the night sky. Those constellations, they're not just pretty dots. The emu in the sky, a dark nebula stretching across the Milky Way, tells you when to collect emu eggs. Spot it rising in April. Time to hunt. Fading by June, eggs are hatching. Miss the cue, and you're eating roasted witchetty grubs for dinner instead. Not that there's anything wrong with that, unless you're the grub. But here's the kicker. Some elders swear the land talks back. They'll point to patterns in the dirt, a twist of roots, a scatter of pebbles, and claim it's the earth's way of updating the syllabus. Skeptics call it pareidolia. Traditional knowledge keepers just shrug and show you a 1,000-year-old rock carving that perfectly predicts a seasonal flood pattern. Coincidence? The land's been trolling us longer than Twitter has. Now for the weirdness. Ever heard of dendroglyphs? These aren't your average tree carvings. Certain eucalyptus trees bear intricate symbols cut into their bark, spirals, grids, animal tracks that act as 3D maps. One particular tree in Arnhem Land allegedly holds directions to a secret ochre mine, if you can decipher the code. Problem is, the tree's over 400 years old, half-rotted, and home to a very territorial python. Archaeologists call it the Indiana Jones GPS. But here's where it gets spicy. While most agree these symbols were teaching tools, nobody's sure how they evolved. Some argue the patterns are literal. A kangaroo track means kangaroo here. Others insist they're abstract, like a Stone Age IKEA manual. Take the honey ant glyph found near Alice Springs. Is it a map to a nest, a warning about biting insects, or a 40,000-year-old meme about overeating? The debate's hotter than a bushfire in December. You crouch to examine a patch of soil a child's footprint sits beside a kangaroo track. The lesson is clear. Follow the prints to water. But then you spot a series of concentric circles scratched nearby. A watering hole, a campfire site. Or maybe, as one cheeky elder suggests, the world's first doodle of a chocolate sprinkled donut. The land doesn't give easy answers. It winks and waits for you to connect the dots. You crouch over the concentric circles etched into the dirt, fingertips hovering just above the grooves. The lines feel less like a map and more like a riddle, a puzzle box left behind by someone who's been dead for millennia. The child's footprint and kangaroo track make sense, practical, literal. But these looping spirals, they're the ancient equivalent of a cryptic text message. You squint, half expecting the ground to whisper its secrets. It doesn't. Instead, a gust of wind kicks up red dust, blurring the lines like a cosmic eraser. This, you realize, is the heart of the mystery. These symbols aren't just instructions, they're conversations. Take the wordy Yuang stone arrangement in Victoria, a 11,000-year-old egg-shaped ring of basalt rocks. To the untrained eye, it's a random pile of boulders. But align the stones with the sunset during solstices, and suddenly you've got a Stone Age calendar more precise than your smartphone's weather app. Archaeologists still argue whether it's an astronomical tool or a ceremonial site. The local Wathaurong elders shrug. It's both, they say. Why choose? Then there's the Juliri rock art in Arnhem Land, a gallery of 15,000-year-old paintings that put the ochre-stained rock face looms above you. Its surface, a chaotic collage of overlapping figures, kangaroos mid-leap, fish with scales like cross-hatched diamonds, humans with spears raised in eternal battle. Your eyes catch on a figure that makes your breath hitch. A striped quadruped with a stiff tail, its jaws open in a silent snarl. You've seen this creature before in textbooks, in museum dioramas. A thylacine, extinct since 1936. Yet here it is, rendered in 15,000-year-old pigment, its stripes still vivid as the day some long-dead artist mixed clay and spit to capture its likeness. You lean closer, the midday sun baking the sandstone. That's when you notice the sequence, a hunting scene repeated 3 times across the rock. First, the thylacine stalks a wallaby. Next, it pounces. Finally, it lies on its side, belly distended. A meal or a metaphor? Archaeologists have spent decades arguing whether these panels are field guides for tracking game or spiritual maps for tracking souls. The local Yolngu elders chuckle when asked. Why not both? One says, gesturing to a nearby termite mound. You think that's just dirt. That's a city, a cathedral, a whole universe. Your fingers hover over a cluster of concentric circles etched near the thylacine's paw. They look identical to the ones you saw hours earlier in the wordy Yuang stone circle, a geometric echo across 300 kilometers. You're about to snap a photo when a shadow shifts. The setting sun angles through a fissure in the rock, illuminating a previously hidden figure, a humanoid shape with elongated limbs, its head crowned by what looks like antlers or maybe rays of light. The image swims in your vision, details blurring as sweat drips onto your phone screen. Here's the thing nobody tells you about time traveling via rock art. The past doesn't like to sit still. That antlered figure. Some scholars swear it's proof of prehistoric shamanic rituals involving hallucinogenic plants. Others insist it's a crude depiction of the constellation Orion. A particularly stubborn contingent argues it's evidence of ancient you're crouching, where the Indian Ocean gnaws at Arnhem Land, salt spray stinging your sunburned neck. A receding tide reveals what modern maps ignore, crisscrossed channels bleeding rust red across wet sand. To your city-trained eyes, it's a haphazard tic-tac-toe board. To the Gumatch elders, a 60,000-year-old weather app. Fingertips trace ridges shallow as fingernail scratches, each line tracking lunar moods. Spring tides get zigzag borders, neap tides gentle waves, like Morse code. You're not just seeing fishing schedules. This grid predicted when monsoon rains would reignite parched rivers. Historians confirmed it last decade. Carbon-dated tidal traps near Brewerina still catch barramundi after 7 millennia. Yet tour guides whisper stranger truths, that certain swirling glyphs doubled as menstrual cycle calculators, moon phases etched alongside shellfish harvest dates. Here's the kicker, each grid had cheat codes. Elders taught kids to rearrange shells on these boards, strategizing tide-driven ambushes for mullet schools. 3 clans, 3 shells, 3 possible outcomes. Recognize that gameplay. Exactly, but forget paper and pencil. Imagine using clenched teeth as X's and dugong bones as O's. A hot wind kicks up, blowing the scent of rotting kelp into your nostrils. Your thumb unconsciously traces that universal 3x3 lattice, diagonal/obsession, embedded deep. But hold on, why's this Bronze Age design lingering in every kindergarten classroom? Mainstream academia claims Romans spread it via trade routes. Coastal Yolngu storytellers counter with a salty truth. Their ancestors etched similar grids to teach tidal arithmetic centuries before some Italian toddler chewed on a wax tablet. You shuffle sideways, the sand sucking greedily at your ankles. Notice how some symbols hide in negative space. That diamond shape isn't empty, it's bait. Ancient fisherwomen left gaps where barramundi would school during specific moon phases. A seafood trap Einstein would applaud. Modern fishermen still use the technique, minus the ceremonial sand art. Lesson 1. Predator becomes prey. Lesson 2. Geometry feeds families. But let's get weird. Ever heard of the Whipple hypothesis? Some Oxford Don published a paper arguing Aboriginal tidal grids inspired Norse runestones, claims Vikings nicked the concept during undocumented Australian pit stops. Peer reviewers choked on their tea. but satellite images of similar glyphs in Tasmania and Gotland keep the theory on life support. You stifle a laugh, imagining bearded berserkers taking notes while dodging kangaroos. Darkness falls, Venus pulsing like a neon casino sign. Your flashlight catches ochre residue in the grooves, iron oxide mixed with spit. The grid glows Martian red. Squint, there's the genius twist. These boards self-erased, with each high tide forcing constant strategy updates. Forget engraved stone monuments. This was ephemeral analytics. PowerPoint could never. A hermit crab hijacks your shoelace, nature's reminder to stay grounded. You count lunar correlated symbols, 28 variations matching the synodic month. But one outlier haunts academics, a spiral intersecting a grid near Kakadu. Radioisotopes date it to the last ice age, when seas were 300 feet lower. Historians still argue whether it's a tsunami warning or the world's earliest documented game of three-dimensional tic-tac-toe. Your cheeks hurt from grinning. This beach just rewired your brain. Each grain of sand whispers survivalist Sudoku. You kick off soggy shoes, feet sinking into ancestral calculus. Somewhere, a 6th grade teacher drones about graph paper strategies, oblivious to the salt-crusted origins under your toes. The waves return, saltwater dissolving yesterday's battle plans. Tomorrow's high tide will write new ones. The fire crackles to life as the last light of the sun drowns in the sea, its flames licking the underside of a blackened cooking stone. You're sitting cross-legged in a circle of children, their eyes reflecting sparks like tiny constellations. An elder crushes a bundle of dried emu bush leaves, releasing a sharp, citrus scent that mingles with wood smoke. "Watch the flames," she says, tossing a handful of crushed quartz into the fire. The sparks burst upward in a shower of gold. A miniature meteor shower trapped in a single breath. One of the kids pokes a stick into the coals, drawing a series of connected circles in the ash. That's the 7 sisters. The elder's hand stills the child's stick mid-arc. Angura Ninu Walaja, she murmurs, her voice equal parts song and sigh, as the fire spits a particularly stubborn ember into the night. You catch the scent of burning spinifex, resin, a prickly perfume that stings your nostrils like ancestral deja vu. The kids freeze as she swishes the ash-drawn stars into oblivion with a calloused palm. Stories in sand aren't meant to outlast their telling, she says. But the way her gaze flicks toward the horizon suggests a lie she's swallowed whole. Foreign boots arrived with their love of straight lines, squared fences, ink that scars parchment like healed burns. Missionaries mistook the disappearing symbols for carelessness, never grasping their intentional fragility. In Mildura, settlers paved a children's game board with colonial bricks, buried beneath the post office foundation by a clerk who scribbled savage hieroglyphs in his diary. You can still see cracks in the mortar, sandy veins whispering through red clay like stolen breath. Rain becomes the great betrayer here. What sacred geometries washed away to feed settler crops, corn sprouts piercing through ghost maps of clan boundaries. Museum basements now hoard confiscated message sticks, their ochre stains fluorescing under UV lights like phantom fingerprints. One curator swears he found kangaroo grass pollen trapped in the grooves, frozen mid-migration from a ceremonial site. Historians still argue whether dots on 19th century mission school slates represent stolen kinship charts or bored students doodling under a nun's glare. You brush your thumb over a half-scorched pebble from the fire pit, its surface still humming with residual heat. That clerk's diary, rediscovered in a Melbourne charity shop, stuffed inside a hollowed-out taxidermied kookaburra, the ultimate colonial nesting doll. Rumor says when scholars x-rayed the bird's beak, they found quartz fragments from a pulverized sacred site. Coincidence? The elder would snort louder than a brumbee, hearing that one. Kids start lobbing gumnuts into the dying flames, each pop mimicking the sound of distant corroboree rhythms. Their laughter feels defiant here, a sparkling counterpoint to raised songlines. Somewhere out there, under the fluorescent buzz of a university archive, a PhD student squints at spectral imaging of a 200-year-old saddle blanket. The auction listing called its faded markings tribal stains, but the infrared scan reveals a perfect coastal tide grid, surfs up, circa 1823. Moisture seeps through your jeans as the night chill claims the earth. The elder rubs her palms clean, red pigment swirling into the dirt like watered-down blood. She nods toward the southern sky, Crux constellation, blinking through the haze like a hesitant ally. They tried to bury us in their forever ink, she says, kicking dust over the last coal's glow. But deserts eat paper for breakfast. One girl pockets a charcoal-blackened twig, its tip still warm. The ghost of a game board tucked between bus tickets and mint wrappers waiting. The girl's bus ticket bristles against that charred twig in her pocket, a phantom itch humming through denim as streetlights smear across the windshield. You lean against a vibrating window, asphalt blurring into the ochre-toned hallucinations of jet lag. Outside, neon billboards for data plans bleed into constellations Orion might doodled on a foggy lens. Someone's phone pings with the sound of a simulated didgeridoo, a Nokia ringtone from 2008, still clinging to cultural relevance like a meme-obsessed ghost. Down an alley reeking of fried onion and eucalyptus oil, a projector flickers against a brick wall. Pixelated dots swarm like digital ants, resolving into the same kinship patterns elders once pressed into creeds. The artist, a woman in a hoodie emblazoned with Terra, NULLIUS, MY-ass, her stylus tapping an iPad layered under ancestral handprints. You catch a whiff of her spray paint, acrylic aerosol, mimicking the tang of wild spinach pigment. Wi-Fi, just another songline, she mutters, blending a tick-tock notification chime into a drone of clapsticks. It's not entirely metaphor. In 1971, decades before hashtags, the Papunya Tula movement hid sacred stories under abstract dots to satisfy nosy missionaries. Now their descendants weaponize Instagram filters to superimpose flood warnings onto Google Earth's dead-eyed grids. That meme about cat pictures as modern cave art, the curator at Sydney's MCA swears a Yolngu teen made it viral during finals week. Historians still argue whether glitch art counts as ceremonial ephemera, or if emoji constellations cheapen celestial navigation. You pocket a sticker from the merch table, its holographic surface shifting between QR codes and sacred waterholes. Back home, your phone auto-connects to a network named Guest TIDALGRID, overpriced green tea in hand. You absent-mindedly sketch spirals in condensation. The cafe Wi-Fi password, Mildura 1839. The barista winces when you say it aloud, his tattooed knuckles flashing don't and tell. Turns out, he moonlights mapping Colonial well locations through Pokemon Go portals. Bow to drop a lure module where they bulldozed the Possum Clan's meeting stones. He whispers, apple pie sarcasm dripping like wattle seed syrup. At midnight, your laptop glows, a poor substitute for campfire, as you scroll through digitized mission ledgers. Between entries about tea rations and psalm recitals, aboard settlers' doodles of interlocking circles, comment section warriors debate whether they're proof of cross-cultural game sharing or just Victorian-era boredom. Your cursor hovers over a suspiciously clean patch of scan, right where an archivist's note says possible saliva stain, tested positive for bush tomato residue. Coincidence? The artist from the alley would roll her eyes and call it reciprocal colonizing. Rain taps at the window, nature's own buffering symbol. Somewhere in the Outback, a solar-powered server farm hums inside a repurposed bomb shelter, its cooling vents clogged with Spinifex fluff. Rumor says one terminal plays Pilstrina's Sicut service on loop to appease the ancestral beings supposedly haunting its motherboards. The IT guy, a non-binary Wiradjuri poet who names every router after per-contact star maps. Last week, they armor-plated a satellite dish with emu feathers, DIY signal booster, or performance art. Check the group chat. You snort green tea through your nose when a meme pops up. A Renaissance angel holding a smartphone captioned, when trad wife ancestor texts, they took the kids. Dark humor clings to the roof of your mouth, sweet and bitter, like Kwandong paste. The barista slides into your DMs with GPS coordinates and a single eye emoji. Google Street View shows a cracked footpath near the river, its fissures, tracing the exact zigzag of a sandhill woman's puberty rite diagram from 1892. Snow crash vibes, he types. Bring spray paint. Dawn pinks the sky like diluted ceremonial ochre. Your last coherent thought before caffeine kicks in. What if all technology is just faster ways to drag sticks through more permanent sand? The artist's sticker glows on your laptop, a pulsating green dot overlaying your downtown grid. 2,000 miles west, that server farm's turbines spin wild in the desert wind. Disk drives whir, spinifex crackles. A USB stick buried in a ceremonial object boots up. Somewhere between silicon and sandstone, the old new stories keep breathing. You kneel in the red dust, your fingertips brushing earth, still warm from the day's heat. A stick of ironwood rests in your palm, its tip sharpened to carve stories older than the eucalyptus groves around you. The ground here isn't just dirt, it's a living ledger. Every groove you etch hums with the weight of generations, a language written in dunes and dry riverbeds. Elders once called it Kuruwari, the dreaming tracks that map creation itself. Your first line curves like a serpent's spine, a winding path that mirrors the Milky Way's arc overhead. This isn't art for art's sake. That zigzag, a drought's warning. The cluster of dots, a wombat burrow 3 valleys west. You smudge a circle with your heel, a waterhole that hasn't dried in 7 dry seasons. Historians still argue whether these symbols were navigational tools or spiritual blueprints. But your grandmother's stories say they're both. Dreaming tracks don't care if you're hunting kangaroo or your soul, she'd chuckle, grinding ochre between her palms. The pigments tell their own tale. That burnt orange, iron-rich clay from the gorge, where the rainbow serpent slept. The white powder, crushed gypsum traded with coastal clans for a dozen emu eggs. You mix it with spit, the way the ochre paste clings to your fingertips as you press it into the cracked earth. Each stroke a whispered argument against time. You're not just drawing a waterhole's map, you're etching a love letter to impermanence. The air smells of eucalyptus and the metallic tang of distant rain, your shadow stretching long as the sun bleeds into the horizon. A kookaburra's laugh echoes, sharp as a knife, as you trace the serpent's tail toward a cluster of dots, representing the sacred honey ant nests. Your auntie once told you these patterns were the original GPS. Google Maps with a side of Dreamtime, she'd joke, her eyes crinkling. But the ground feels different now. The soil crumbles too easily under your palm, parched by summers that stretch longer each year. You glance at the cracked clay pen where generations of elders taught children to read the land's wrinkles. Last week, rangers found 800-year-old petroglyphs exposed by a freak dust storm. Ancestral kangaroo carvings, now baking under a sun that feels angrier than the stories describe. Your thumb brushes a spiral symbol for cyclical time, its edges blurred by last decade's flash floods. The irony isn't lost on you. The very elements these maps were meant to interpret are now erasing them. A debate simmers among the custodians gathered at the preservation meeting. Should they coat the ancient rock art with clear resin, defying the tradition of natural decay? Old man Wally spits into the dust. You might as well put our songlines in a museum freezer next to Waltzing Matilda. But the grad student from Sydney argues through her face mask, voice muffled. If we don't stabilize the pigments, the next cyclone will scrub these stories clean. You stay silent, kneading a ball of beeswax and spinifex, resin, the same waterproof glue your people used to patch canoes, wondering if it could shield the stories without trapping their spirits. Later, you hike to the canyon where the monsoon rains first breach the escarpment. Your boots sink into sand that still holds the memory of a river. Here, the ancestors painted the monsoon's rhythm, not in calendars, but in the angle of cockatoo feathers drawn beside flood lines. You press your palm against a rock still cool from the night, feeling the ghost of a barramundi engraving beneath your fingers. Some claim these fish symbols predicted annual wet seasons better than modern meteorology. A 1920s anthropologist once wrote that the local people could smell rain coming weeks in advance, though his journals also called their star maps primitive astrology. The real magic happens at midnight. You're crouched beside a fire with the women from the Weaving Collective, grinding charcoal into a paste, while satellite phones buzz with weather alerts. A teenager shows you her smartphone's climate app, its radar pulsing red with an approaching heat wave. Nana's knee says it'll break by Thursday. She smirks, nodding at her grandmother's swollen joints. Sure enough, the old woman hums a warning tune about the south wind bringing fire-breathing lizards. Her way of describing the dry lightning storms that have burned through 3 sacred sites this year. You grin, adding a pinch of termite mound dust to your pigment mix. Science and story dancing again. By dawn, you're on your knees beside a sandstone outcrop, the first rays of sun revealing a 500-year-old depiction of the Milky Way. Your brush hovers over a flaking star cluster. The conservators want you to reinforce the lines with acrylics. The elders want you to let it fade. You dip your brush in water instead, tracing the constellation with a liquid mirror, a temporary fix that honors the art's mortality. Somewhere, a dingo howls. The wind lifts a lock of your hair, and for a heartbeat, you swear it carries the sound of children laughing as they redraw the world in tomorrow's dust. Your thumb hovers over the smartphone screen, its glow painting your face blue in the pre-dawn dark. A pulsing spiral pattern beckons, its design ripped straight from 60,000-year-old sand dunes. You tap begin journey, and suddenly you're not in your stale apartment anymore. You're tracing the winding songline of the honey ant ancestor with a fingertip that tingles like it's brushing real sand. The app's developer called it cultural ASMR, but old man Wally growled it was dreamtime on demand. Sacrilege with the vibration feedback mimics the crunch of gravel underfoot as you navigate a maze of dots and lines. Get a sequence right, and the screen erupts in ochre-hued fractals that kinda look like the time your cousin tried latte art at that racist cafe in Bondi. Fail, and a gentle ding sound plays, sampled from a didgeridoo hit with a tennis racket in 2017 during that disastrous fusion concert at the Sydney Opera House. Historians still argue whether these digital adaptations preserve tradition or turn sacred knowledge into a Candy Crush skin. But hey, 93 million downloads don't lie. Rewind to 2 years ago. Picture a stuffy community hall where app developers hunched over laptops next to elders sipping sweet tea. The lead programmer, a TikTok addict with a Maori forearm tattoo of Pac-Man, kept arguing for neon colors. Auntie Rita shut him down with a raised hand. You make my totem glow like a rave poster. I'll code switch your jaw into next week. The compromise: customizable palettes, but the default settings use only ochre, charcoal, and the exact green of eucalyptus leaves after monsoon rain. Now imagine the QA tester's shock when players started using the app for way more than meditation. Melbourne nurses mapped chemotherapy schedules onto ritual healing symbols. A Swiss snowboarder swore the patterns helped him visualize avalanche folds during the Olympics. Then there's the conspiracy forum thread insisting the app's kangaroo icon winks if you beat all levels during a solar eclipse. Spoiler, it's a glitch from the intern forgetting to disable Easter eggs after April Fools. You swipe past a minigame based on the Seven Sisters constellation, its mechanics lifted straight from initiation rites, where teens navigated star maps blindfolded. The original version involved burning gum leaves and memorizing rhymes. But here, it's all haptic buzzes and auto-save features. Something vibrates in your chest anyway. Maybe the 12 exabyte servers humming under Reykjavik are channeling the same urgency as dirt drawings meant to vanish by sundown. A notification pops up. Your daily reminder that Wi-Fi signals travel along the same paths as ancient message sticks. You snort, remembering the investor meeting where some Silicon Valley bro suggested NFTs. Grandma Nellie's response, delivered via shaky Zoom connection, became a meme. You wanna sell invisible rock art? Go toss your CryptoPunks where the dingoes don't dig. The sun's up now, glaring through your cracked blinds. You've reached the final level, a labyrinth that recreates the lost sand drawings from that drowned coastal cave. Archaeologists found seaweed fragments in the pigment, proving ancestors mapped tidal patterns even as seas rose. Your thumb hesitates. Beat this, and you unlock ancestral wisdom. Fail, and the game suggests you listen closer to country. Either way, the ad-free premium version costs less than that crystal-infused meditation app your therapist keeps pushing. As the last line connects, your touchscreen mirroring some Ice Age kid's finger in a long dust storm, your phone buzzes once, twice. Then plays a field recording of cicadas from a Arnhem Land wet season. The screen flashes white for half a breath. You swear the pixels rearrange into a face that looks like your great-grand's 1920s studio portrait. Then it's gone, replaced by 3 pulsating dots, and the gentle suggestion to go touch grass, but respectfully. Outside, traffic honks replace didgeridoo drones. You pocket the phone, fingertips still humming with phantom vibrations. Somewhere above, a plane streaks across the sky, its contrail sketching a temporary songline that tomorrow's wind will erase. The screen flickers once more, the afterimage of your ancestors' face lingering like a ghost in your retinas. Before you can process it, the app's interface shifts again. Suddenly you're standing in a moonlit clearing, the air thick with the scent of eucalyptus and crushed lemon myrtle. A circle of women kneels in the dirt, their hands tracing patterns in the ash from a smoldering fire. One lifts a charred stick, sketching a series of dots and lines that mirror the constellations overhead. See how the 7 sisters dance with the emu in the sky. She murmurs to a girl beside her. When their feet touch the horizon, the yam roots grow fat as a goanna's tail. You lean closer, noticing the intricate grid etched into the ground, a lattice of intersecting lines that map the moon's phases against the flowering cycles of native plants. One elder points to a cluster of marks resembling Venus's crescent. That's Julpan, the morning star. When she winks 3 times above the ironwood tree, the monsoon rains come. Her finger sweeps across the grid, connecting celestial events to earthly rhythms, turtle nesting seasons timed to full moons, honey harvests synced with the Pleiades' descent. The girl copies the symbols into a patch of smoothed sand, her brow fursing as she aligns a kangaroo bone tool with a particular star cluster. Here's the twist. Modern archaeologists once dismissed these grids as decorative doodles, until a 1980s dig near Kakadu uncovered a 12,000-year-old stone slab etched with identical markings. Carbon-dated pollen grains trapped in the grooves revealed the patterns matched lunar cycles, influencing seasonal bush tucker abundance. A prehistoric farmer's almanac carved in stone. Yet conspiracy theorists still argue the grids are alien star maps, citing with zero evidence that Warlpiri elders predicted the 1969 moon landing through ancestral astral projections. Your phone vibrates, overlaying a translucent timeline across the scene. A pop-up explains how Yolngu women tracked tidal patterns using the moon's position to predict the mangrove crab migrations, a fact that blew marine biologists' minds in 2007, when traditional knowledge accurately pinpointed spawning events modern tech had missed. The app cheekily adds a fact-check button that plays audio of a 103-year-old matriarch laughing at a researcher's GPS device. Why need satellite when you got granny stories? A debate bubbles up in the corner of the screen, a live chat where historians argue whether these lunar grids influenced early Greek astronomy. One user posts a photo of a Babylonian cuneiform tablet with suspiciously similar star grids, while another counters that Aboriginal oral histories reference the sky canoes of Macassan traders visiting Australia 500 years before Europeans. The app's AI interjects with a snarky, "Did you know 63% of all academic papers on indigenous astronomy begin with the phrase, contrary to colonial assumptions?" You swipe left, accidentally triggering a mini-game where you must align virtual constellations to trigger a virtual rainstorm. Mist sprays from your phone speakers. A 4D experience feature that's really just the developer hacking a Bluetooth-connected humidifier. As droplets hit your screen, the women's ash drawings morph into shimmering animations, moon phases blooming into flower symbols, tide charts dissolving into fish migration routes. A hidden layer of the grid glows faintly, a series of handprints pressed into the earth, each representing generations of knowledge passed palm to palm. The game glitches. Suddenly, you're staring at a 1790s British naval map of the same coastline. Its crisp lines and Latin labels overlaying the indigenous grid like a colonial palimpsest. A red error message flashes. Cartographic conflict detected. The app's ambient soundtrack, a blend of didgeridoo and electronic synth, stutters into static. For 3 seconds, you hear overlapping voices, a historian lecturing about terra nullius, an elder singing a monsoon song, a TikTok influencer screeching, "Yas, slay, celestial queen." Then it resets. You're back in the clearing at dawn, the women now using their grids to calculate the exact angle of the rising sun. One measures shadows with a string made of kangaroo sinew, adjusting the grid lines as sunlight bleeds across the symbols. Her daughter practices a counting song, using knotted fibers to tally lunar months between honey ant swarms. It hits you. This isn't just a calendar. It's a living spreadsheet, a database of survival algorithms refined over 60,000 rainy seasons. Your phone overheats. The screen dims to a warning. Cultural memory exceeds storage capacity. Somewhere in Silicon Valley, a server farm full of blockchain bros sweats as their AI scrambles to compress 2,000 generations of observational science into a 2 MB app update. You chuckle, remembering your cousin's failed startup selling authentic Aboriginal rain sticks made in a Shenzhen factory. The women's laughter echoes through your headphones, a soundbite recorded in 1972 by an anthropologist who later admitted he'd accidentally left the mic running during a joke about his terrible bush tucker cooking. As the scene fades, your screen displays a disclaimer. This app's star maps are 78% accurate based on peer-reviewed studies. The remaining 22%, that's what happens when you try to digitize the smell of rain on dry earth. A final notification pops up, a cultural competency quiz, offering 10% off merch if you can identify which constellation predicts the best time to harvest witchetty grubs. You fail spectacularly, mistaking the Southern Cross for a recipe for damper bread. The women in the video shake their heads, their disappointment more crushing than your 5G signal in an elevator. The app closes. You're left staring at your lock screen, a photo of your niece grinning with a boomerang at last year's sorry day picnic. Somewhere between the pixels and the plastic, a thought nags. Maybe the real ancestral algorithm was the Wi-Fi passwords we memorized along the way. The sand shifts beneath your feet as you kneel, fingers tracing a serpentine path through the rust-red dust. A warm wind carries the tang of saltbush and the faintest hint of rain from a cloudless sky, the kind of dry season breeze that makes your lips crack if you forget to smear them with goanna fat. You're not just drawing lines, you're stitching together a map of the land's bones. The songlines your great-great-grandmother walked when the megafauna still roamed. Each curve in the dirt mirrors the creeks that only flow once a decade. Every dot marks a water hole where emu tracks circle the mud like ancient hieroglyphs. An elder crouches beside you, her hands steady as she demonstrates the kuru technique, flicking sand with a twig to create constellations of tiny craters. This one's the dingo's paw print, she murmurs, etching a 5-dot cluster. When it points toward the thorny devil's tail, she drags a wavy line eastward. The honey ants start their march. You squint at the pattern, realizing it's an almanac written in negative space, the gaps between marks, revealing where to find food when the earth turns to dust. Here's the kicker. Archaeologists found 40,000-year-old ochre pigments in Kakadu's caves with the same geometric patterns. But try telling that to the 19th century anthropologists who called these primitive scribbles. Spoiler, they also thought wombats were giant rats. The real twist, that scribble you're copying, it's a topographic map of the entire Arnhem Land coastline, accurate enough to navigate by if you know how to read the dots as tidal markers instead of decoration. Your stick snags on something hard, a weathered stone tool half buried in the dirt. The elder chuckles. That's old man Warren's knife. Dropped it during the last big corroboree before the white fellas came. You turn it over, noticing the notches along its edge, a tally system matching the lunar cycles painted on nearby rock shelters. Modern researchers once dismissed these marks as ritualistic scarification, until a grad student realized they predicted solar eclipses with 92% accuracy. The remaining 8%, probably a bad batch of wattle seed coffee. A gust scatters your sand drawing, erasing the dingo's paw. The elder doesn't flinch. Wind's just editing the story, she says, smoothing the dust with her palm. Same way your phone updates maps when rivers change course. She redraws the lines lower, adjusting for the shifted dunes. You notice her adding a new symbol, a spiral where the horizon meets the sky. That's the whirlwind's path, she explains, tells us when to take shelter before the sky turns angry. A debate simmers in your head. Was this ever art? Or was it always a survival tool disguised as decoration? The original infographic. Scholars still argue whether the concentric circles represent water holes or star clusters. Pro tip: they're probably both. Your ancestors were into multitasking. The real answer's etched in a 12,000-year-old grinding stone found near Mungo, like a recipe for bush medicine that doubles as a star chart for the winter solstice. You try copying the spiral, but your version looks more like a squashed cockroach. The elder's eyes crinkle with amusement. Don't worry. My first kuru looked like a drunk goanna's footprints. She guides your hand, the stick moving in fluid arcs that feel less like drawing and more like unspooling memory. The sand seems to sing as you work. A low hum you later learn comes from quartz crystals vibrating in the dunes. Yes, really. Geologists confirmed it in 2017. No, they still can't explain why. As the sun dips, your map glows gold, a temporary masterpiece that'll vanish by dawn. But the elder's already scattering the lines with her foot. Stories don't belong to the dirt, she says. They belong to the telling. You watch the wind carry a fleck of ochre into the air, a tiny spark of knowledge. The wind carries the last of the sand's song into the gathering dusk as you crouch beside the elder, your fingers still tingling from the quartz's hum. But the air feels different now, thicker, heavier. The kind of heat that doesn't just warm your skin, but presses against your ribs like a living thing. You glance at the horizon where the sky bleeds orange, the sun a smudge of molten gold sinking into the land. Dry season's coming early this year, the elder murmurs, her eyes tracking a flock of corellas wheeling overhead. Bush is thirsty, even the rocks are dreaming of rain. You don't notice the drone at first, its buzz blending with the cicada's drone until it swoops low, casting a spiderweb shadow over your sand drawing. The elder shields her eyes, squinting at the machine's blinking lights. New tool for old stories, she says, more to herself than you. A park ranger jogs up, tablet in hand, swiping through thermal images of the dunes. We're mapping erosion patterns, he explains, zooming in on a pixelated swirl of ochre pigment, half buried under shifting sands. Last monsoon washed away 3 sacred sites. This heat's baking the soil into concrete. The Rangers team has resorted to 3D printing replicas of the oldest petroglyphs, using resin mixed with crushed local stone to mimic the originals. Feels like cheating, he admits, showing you a fragment of printed rock etched with kangaroo tracks. But when the real ones crumble, at least the kids'll know what they looked like. You run your thumb over the fake stone, its surface too perfect, lacking the cracks where lichen once grew. Here's the kicker. Last year, conservators tried spraying the ancient rock art with a polymer developed by NASA for Mars rovers, only to discover the coating attracted invasive ants that chewed through millennia-old pigments. The cleanup involved tweezers and a very patient entomologist. Now they're testing a biogel made from Spinifex grass sap, the same resin your ancestors used to glue spearheads. The elder sniffs a sample tube. Smells like my grandmother's glue pot, she says, daubing some on a test rock. Sticks better than that white fella plastic. You follow them to a cliff face where laser scanners were, mapping a gallery of dancing figures painted in blood-red ochre. The ranger points to a faded handprint stencil. That's been here since the last ice age, he says. Carbon dated the oxalate crust to 28,000 years, but the heat's peeling it like sunburned skin. A conservator in a sun hat carefully applies the Spinifex gel, her brush strokes echoing the ancient artist's motions. We're basically putting sunscreen on the rocks, she jokes, though her smile doesn't reach her eyes. The debate hits you over dinner that night, campfire sparks spiraling into the star-flecked sky. A grad student from Sydney argues with a local elder's grandson about preservation ethics. If we encase everything in resin, are we freezing time? The student asks, waving a charred kangaroo skewer. The art was meant to fade. That's why they repainted it every generation. The grandson stokes the fire, embers reflecting in his glasses. You mob want museums. We want living stories. How you gonna sing the land if it's trapped under glass? It's not just the heat they're fighting. Feral camels, descendants of 19th century imports for desert exploration, now trample sacred sites while searching for water. Fun fact: Australia's 1.2 million wild camels outnumber the entire global population of wild Bactrians. The ranger's latest headache, a viral TikTok trend where influencers pose with undiscovered rock art. Their geotags drawing hordes of tourists who accidentally scrub off pigments with their selfie sticks. Last week, someone tried to restore a Wandjina figure with house paint. He groans. Glossy white. In the sacred rain spirit's eyes, the elder's solution is simpler. At dawn, she leads you to a salt flat where the horizon shimmers like a mirage. Kneeling, she scatters a handful of seeds in a spiral pattern. Fire management, she explains. Old way. Burn small patches when the desert oak flowers grow, so big fires can't eat the stories. A national park's drone buzzes overhead, dropping incendiary pellets to mimic traditional cool burns. The elder watches flames creep across the scrub. Machines learn fast, she concedes, but fire's a living thing, needs to breathe like us. The tension crystallizes at a council meeting beneath a tarp strung between eucalyptus trees. Climate scientists project heat maps showing the desert expanding like a stain. Elders pass around a 1970s field report where anthropologists sketched a now vanished rock shelter, its location lost until a wildfire exposed it last summer. See these dots? A botanist points to a satellite image of vegetation patterns. That's not random. It's a 600-year-old fire management grid. They farmed the land with flames. The real kicker comes when a linguist reveals 19th century missionaries' diaries describing childish scribbles on cliff faces, now recognized as encrypted trade routes. The dots and dashes encoding water sources. They called it primitive, she says, holding up a faded journal. Turns out it's a drought survival map accurate to within 2 kilometers. Bonus trivia. The same symbols were found on a 4,000-year-old boomerang in the Kimberley, suggesting an ancient travel guide for songlines. As the meeting dissolves, you spot the elder's grandson teaching a tourist's kid how to read animal tracks in the dust. "This one's a goanna," he says, tracing claw marks. "See how the tail drags. Means he was hunting." The boy copies the shape with a stick, tongue poking out in concentration. Nearby, the grad student films a tick-tock explaining how to identify 40,000-year-old grindstones. The elder watches it all, her face unreadable. "Stories grow or they die," she says finally. "Like people, like country." That night, you dream of a desert where the rocks sing in binary code and drones plant seeds shaped like memory cards. You wake to the smell of smoke, the controlled burn creeping closer, its flames writing ancient warnings in the language of ash. Somewhere in the haze, a drone's camera blinks once, capturing the fire's path in 4K resolution before the wind shifts, erasing the story once again. The sun beats down on your neck as you kneel in the red dirt, your fingers tracing a serpentine groove into the earth. A warm breeze carries the scent of eucalyptus and the faintest hint of smoke from a distant brush fire. An elder's calloused hand guides yours, pressing your palm flat against the ground. "This isn't just dirt," she murmurs. "This is story." The soil feels alive beneath your skin, grains of quartz glittering like crushed stars in the midday light. You're drawing the rainbow serpent's path now, the same winding track it carved through the land when the world was soft and new. Around you, children giggle as they etch kangaroo tracks, and honey ant trails into the dust. One boy drags a stick through a patch of white sand, creating a dotted line that mirrors the Milky Way's curve. "That's the emu in the sky," the elder says, pointing to the constellation taking shape. "Tells us when to collect eggs." You glance up, half expecting to see the celestial bird striding across the blue, but all you spot is a wedge-tailed eagle circling lazily overhead. The lesson continues, how to read the land's wrinkles like a map, how a cluster of concentric circles might signal a hidden waterhole or a sacred birthing site. "Every mark's a memory," the elder explains. "Even the ants know that." Here's the thing nobody tells you about sand stories. They're the original social media. For over 60,000 years, these ephemeral drawings have been the Twitter of the desert, a way to share news, warn of danger, or gossip about who's been stealing honey from the wrong tree. Archaeologists recently found 30,000-year-old stone tools in the Kimberley, with microscopic traces of ochre still clinging to their edges. Proof that your ancestors were hashtagging their adventures millennia before Instagram. But try explaining that to the tourist who just asked if Aboriginal people invented the iPad. The elder demonstrates a complex pattern, a labyrinth of lines and dots that looks like a spider's web after 3 cups of tea. "This one's a songline," she says, her finger following the grooves. "Tells the story of how the cockatoo stole fire from the sun. As she hums a melody that seems to vibrate in your bones, you realize the drawing isn't just a map, it's sheet music. Each curve corresponds to a note, each intersection a rest. Modern musicologists are still trying to decode these land scores, but the truth is simpler. The earth itself is the instrument. Now for the plot twist. That innocent-looking pile of pebbles to your left. It's not just a rock collection. Researchers, using ground-penetrating radar, recently discovered similar stone arrangements at a 40,000-year-old site in Arnhem Land. And they're arranged in patterns that match the seasonal movements of long-extinct megafauna. Some anthropologists think these were ancient zoo maps, guiding hunters to giant wombats the size of SUVs. Side note, the last of these megamarsupials died out around 45,000 years ago, coinciding suspiciously with the arrival of humans. Coincidence? The jury's still out. The real magic happens when the wind picks up. As you watch, a gust sweeps across your half-finished drawing, scattering sand grains like a celestial eraser. The elder laughs at your dismay. Stories aren't meant to last forever, she chides, smoothing the earth with her palm. Only long enough to teach the lesson. She points to a nearby rock shelter where faded ochre handprints cling stubbornly to the ceiling, the Bronze Age equivalent of tagging your bathroom stall. They're just the receipts. The real story's here. She taps your chest, leaving a dusty fingerprint over your heart. As the day wanes, you learn the secret they don't put in field guides. Every sand drawing contains a trapdoor. That innocent-looking spiral. It's actually a 3D map of the local water table. Those parallel lines, a coded warning about which mushrooms will kill you versus which ones will make you see the ancestors. The elder demonstrates by sketching a series of interlocking circles that somehow, against all logic, morph into a perfect topographic map of the valley below. Google Earth's got nothing on this, you mutter, earning a snort of amusement from your teacher. The debate comes to a head when a visiting geologist insists on taking soil samples. We need to carbon date these layers, he argues, brandishing a core sampler like a sword. The elder shakes her head, sprinkling a handful of dust into the wind. Your machines measure time in years. We measure it in stories. She's not wrong. Recent studies of oral histories describing sea level rises 7,000 years ago match geological records with eerie accuracy. But try convincing a room full of PhDs that grandma's campfire yarn about a giant tsunami is peer-reviewed data. As twilight paints the sky in shades of violet, you sit cross-legged by the fire, trying to recreate the day's lessons in the ash. Your stick hovers over a patch of smooth ground as the elder's voice echoes in your memory. Don't draw the story. Be the story. Around you, the night comes alive with the buzz of cicadas and the distant howl of a dingo. Somewhere in the darkness, a child laughs, and for a heartbeat, you swear the stars themselves rearrange into the shape of a dancing man. The fire crackles, sending up sparks that mingle with the Milky Way. In the morning, the wind will erase your clumsy attempts at sand stories, but the blisters on your palms and the red dust in your hair will linger, temporary tattoos from a day spent learning to read the world's oldest library. The sun's warmth lingers on your shoulders as you kneel, fingers tracing grooves in crimson earth. A breeze carries whispers of eucalyptus, smoke from a distant fire, blending with the elder's low hum. Her palm presses yours into the soil grains of quartz, catching twilight like scattered constellations. These marks, she breathes, they're not sand, they're breath. Children's laughter dances at the edge of hearing, their stick-drawn constellations already yielding to the wind. For 60,000 years, these fading images carried news across dunes, warnings of storms woven into kangaroo tracks, love stories sealed in handprint clusters. Experts found ochre-stained tools where hands once paused to sketch the day's gossip. You brush dust from your palms, blisters forming where history pressed into your skin. The elder's melody intertwines with yours now, a hum that maps valleys through vibration rather than ink. Her weathered finger draws sound waves in ash, a tune hidden in the land's contours. Above, the Milky Way unfolds, its glow mirroring the emu tracks now smudged beneath your feet. You watch night breeze lift your drawing grain by grain, an earthly exhale returning stories to the air. Nearby, handprints glow faint on rock, faded receipts of lives that shaped this dust. Temporary, the elder smiles, like rainbows after storm clouds. What remains isn't lines in dirt, but the thrum of ancient wisdom in veins. Secrets hum beneath cracked earth, water maps coded in spiral songs, mushroom warnings etched in dots. Your heartbeat syncs with cicada drums, a primal rhythm older than pyramids. The geologist's core samples sit forgotten, plastic tubes lifeless next to stories breathed on wind. Machines count years, ancestors count dawns. Both whisper truths, neither holds the full song. Firelight dances with starfare now, ember sparks ascending to join their celestial cousins. Your stick rests, half-formed circles dissolving into night. Blisters pulse gently, a language deeper than words. Tonight, as stars blink awake, you realize true stories live in the silences between footprints. The land whispers now. Breathe, listen,